High density big city residents. What's the craziest thing you've seen through someone else's windows? NSFW. I lived in a big city and made friends with a few guys who lived across the alley from me. They were out drinking on the deck one night when I got home and they invited me over. So we're drinking and I need to take a piss. Walk back to the bathroom and glance out the window to see a fire on a deck. Then I realize it's my ducking deck that is on fire. Barge in on my roommate who is asleep at this point. Dude put his cigarette out into a cardboard box. It caught fire, burned through our deck and then onto the neighbors below. Ducking idiot. Saw a crazy guy yelling at UPS truck accusing it of being a Decepticon, telling it to show itself and transform. He was literally punching and kicking it. It was 9 AM. I once saw a person in full Spider-Man costume just watching TV in their apartment, mask and all, like all night long. This continued each night for all 3 nights I was in the city. It made me believe that Spider-Man is real, but that he doesn't really have much to do besides watch TV. Don't live in a big city, but this one person in my city has a cardboard cutout of the My Pillow guy in every window of their house. Not exactly windows, but there is a guy who sunbathes across from our office, 20-something stories up, on his porch, in the nude. Every now and then in the summer the call will go out. Naked guy is out again. We will all take a quick look to confirm. Yep. He still doesn't know we can see him. The office has tinted windows. From outside they look opaque. I live in downtown Toronto, and I've seen 2 people ducking out of a window. As in, the dude was inside, the girl's front half was out the window, and they were going at it. It was pretty ducking funny. Not even through the window, but when I was at Penn State I saw a couple ducking on the balcony at about 3 AM or so. That probably doesn't count though, because college, in Denver, across from where I work is an apartment building. It is well known throughout my office that there is a man 1 floor down that spends roughly 4 hours every day playing Destiny 2, while in his underwear. Recently saw him playing Sekiro naked, and people were more interested in his game change than they were in his lack of whitey tighties. He didn't seem to enjoy it much, because he was back on Destiny within the hour according to my coworker. I used to live in an apartment building in the East Village in New York. I was on the back of the building, which faced 2 other buildings essentially forming a square behind my building. We used to call this space the shaft. Across the shaft from me there was a girl around my age, at the time, 20 something, who would never wear clothes, and she kept her curtains open all the time. I'd wake up and look out the window facing the shaft and see her cooking an omelette, fully naked. Sometimes before bed she'd do stretches in her room, naked. In the morning she'd get dressed for work with the blinds fully open. I swear I saw her boobs more frequently than my girlfriend's. One night I came back from the bars and looked across the shaft and saw that she wasn't alone. This was weird because despite her nakedness I rarely saw her with anyone else. She didn't have a boyfriend or anything. She was in her room with 3 other people, 2 guys and a girl, and they were all naked too. They weren't having sex or anything, but they were all kind of in a pile on the bed, naked together. I still wonder what her deal was. Was she a nudist or something? In any case, that's the weirdest thing I've seen through someone else's windows. Edit. Great. My top comment ever makes me seem like a bit of a perv. Sort of the reverse for me. My so can't keep her cloths on, and she doesn't care about the blinds, completely assured no one is looking. Till one day our neighbor's blinds fell down. There he was, D in hand, red as a beet and staring right at us. The replies in this thread reminded me of a truism I heard once that I think checks out. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors can't see you, that's rural. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors call the cops, that's suburban. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors ignore you, that's urban. I casually watched my neighbor do a line of coke after sorting most of it into easy to sell containers. When I was in college, our dorms were basically high-rise apartments. One night I was looking out the window, contemplating life, when I saw a man and woman having sex in a building across the street. Also like perfect view of everything. Their bed was directly in front of the window. I called my roommates over and we kinda just watched for a minute. Then we opened our window and started cheering them on. The guy glanced over, grinned and kept going. We were basically watching live porn. TLDR, this kid was spinning the id out of himself. I was smoking on a balcony with some friends when we saw something moving in someone's window. It was someone's living room and some kid, maybe 4 years old, had his arms out airplane style. He was spinning around the room so goddamn hard. He kept popping in and out of view, and genuinely lasted longer than anyone expected. I don't know how, but he must have been going for a full 5 minutes, bouncing off his couch every so often. By the end we were cheering him on. Not even super high density. Neighbor behind me in new build homes. Backyards are small, so his back windows are about 20 yards from mine. My house was finished first. I watched theirs be built. Met them as they would visit. Talked to them and learned. Super religious couple who were engaged. They get the house on X day, but won't be married till the weekend after. So they won't take possession till they are man and wife. That's really all you need to know where I'm going with this. Oh, and I guess you should know. They never seem to understand the reason to get curtains. I swear to God I saw them duck. Try to duck. Learn how to duck. Fail at ducking. Occasionally get ducking right, and one time do anal. Over the course of their first 2 months. I mainly thought it was funny and just ignored it. One time was drunk with the wife and we just watched from the porch. Wasn't till my daughter asked what are they doing, when we were all out in the backyard, that I decided to take action. It was Christmas. I gave them some curtains. In Toronto, I rented the top floor of a house. The house behind us was set back from the street, and the houses on either side were almost in front of it, so you could barely see it from the street. They had planted tall bushes and trees so you couldn't see the hidden house, but we could. From our fire escape balcony, we almost never saw who lived there. I was having a dart up on the fire escape one morning, and I see their back door open up and a guy in his early to mid 40s come out in a bathrobe. He lights a dart as well. We give each other a little open palm wave and nod. A minute later, a black woman comes out in a bathrobe, looking to be naked underneath, and she takes a drag off his cigarette. Then another woman, a white woman, comes out, also in a bathrobe, and admonishes the first two for smoking. The guy puts it out and they all go back inside. A couple of months later I noticed the guy, the 2 women and 4 kids at the local park. 2 white kids, 2 mixed ethnicity kids, all around the same age. That dude was living large on the down low. Right after college I lived in a communal housing situation outside of Nick. We all had our own bedrooms, living areas, but shared a cooking space. About 15-20 people lived there at any given time, depending on who was sleeping with what. Most of us were in our 20s, give or take a few strange ducks. One morning about 3 or 4 am I wake up to the sound of running. So I crawl out of bed and look into the hall. Next thing I know there are 5 guys sprinting down the hall in their boxers, socks and high freaking heels. Not just little kitten heels, full blown stripper heels that I couldn't walk in. Apparently one of the guys had found an ass load of shoes in a spare closet in their size, and completely sober, I'm told, decided to practice relays with some of his neighbors. Personally I just closed my door and locked it behind me. That was a strange few years. Was staying over at a friend's place in Edinburgh. Was on a pull-out sofa. They didn't have curtains in the front room, just blinds, and a balcony beyond that. The railing was all glass. The blinds didn't come down all the way, so I could look out to the flats across the way from where I was laying. Watched a couple have a roaring argument, and then saw him deck her. Woke up my friend and called the police. I had to get on a train in just a few hours, so they said I should go back to sleep and they'd keep watch on the couple flat until the police came. Lived in this one complex growing up. Kinda place where we were section 8 housing, but right across the street were high-end apartments and I think condos. I could see into the kitchen of a bit of a foodie. This was 88, 89, so that term didn't exist yet. I was at the time learning to cook myself, so this was like a live cooking show every night. Then there was what I know was a mock turtle soup recipe, but at the time it was like I was watching someone just do obscene things to a few calf heads. Looked over and they were splitting them to get the brains out, nailing tongues to a board and peeling them. Gore all over the kitchen. Hot naked Asian we called her. Tried not to look, which wasn't too difficult as she was a floor up. but with a raised kitchen and quite tall herself. Then one day I came into my room and my lesbian friend was looking sheepish. I knew exactly what she'd done. She'd been ogling and had gotten caught in the act. HNA shut her blinds from then on. 6 AM. Went on my balcony to get some fresh air. Saw the MILF of my neighborhood cooking while completely naked. That's it. My wife once saw our smoking hot, blonde neighbor getting dressed in front of her apartment window. Full nudity. She told me to go take a look, but I was too late. Never did get to see those tits. I was staying at my father-in-law's condo during a vacation with my wife. There's this annoying middle-aged guy that loves to talk to anyone who comes down to the pool. So we were at the pool talking to him and he pulls out this big toy gun. We're like, what's that for? And he explained that it shot out salt and he used it to kill flies. That's pretty cool. I admit, we let him shoot it at us to feel how much force it had. And it wasn't much at all. But I imagine those little grains of salt shred bug wings. Anyway, he eventually went back inside and so did we. Then we came back out later in the night to barbecue. He was in his home and walking around naked. Okay, no biggie. Just a naked chubby middle-aged guy. Not the worst thing I've seen in my life. What made this weird is that he walked up to one of his end tables, played with his junk for a second, then reached down and grabbed the salt gun, and proceeded to shoot himself in the twig and berries with it for like 2 minutes non-stop. Then headed back into the parts of the house that weren't visible. TLDR, neighbor showed us his salt gun fly swatter thing, and then later on that night used it to shoot himself in the balls over and over for roughly 2 minutes straight. Before our firm relocated our offices, we officed in one of the Dallas skyscrapers downtown. During the day, you really can't see through the windows of the other buildings, but at night, we could make out what people were reading on their computers. To a degree, we circulated an office-wide memo warning people to close their blinds at night because we handle some pretty sensitive cases. One night I was working late and go to close my blinds and I look out across the way and I see a dude sitting at his desk, masturbating to bondage porn. I don't judge. To each their own, but yeah. Fair warning to all my skyscraper friends. We can see your computers. I had a neighbor across the laneway but a floor down that was a smug prick. Tennis, golf, drove a sob. Real wannabe classy but mega pompous. He and his ridiculously mega hot girlfriend were always on the patio drinking white wine, listening to jazz and it. One day I go out on the porch to smoke a cigarette and I can see right down into his living room window. I can see the usual 2 glasses of white wine and faintly hear the usual jazz in the background. What was different was that he is getting absolutely pounded in the ass by this behemoth black guy. I guess he just had to have it all. Not that crazy, but my living room window faces directly at my neighbor's living room window. Yesterday, they had their parents over and were playing cards. The dad was sitting on a yoga ball and busted ass right when I happened to glance over, so I saw the whole thing. Got a good chuckle out of that. This is a great question, and something that I have an answer for. I grew up in an apartment in downtown Chicago and there was one apartment whose window lined up perfectly with ours. It was occupied by a younger couple in their mid-20s who I never met in person. I never saw them on the street or at the grocery store. I only ever saw them through the window. One day, I was looking through the window and I saw the couple having sex. I was young and didn't understand that it was wrong to continue observing. So I stayed in the window. The guy made eye contact with me and stood up and went into the closet. I continued watching. His hand reached out of the closet holding a Mitt Romney mask which the woman promptly grabbed and put on her face. The guy emerged from the closet also wearing a Mitt Romney mask. At the time, I didn't even know who Mitt Romney was. This was before the 2012 election, so I don't even know how or why they had masks of the governor of Massachusetts. It wasn't until 2012 that I realized in hindsight that they were wearing Mitt Romney masks. At this point I was terrified that they might be trying to hide their identities while they murdered me or something like that. But no, they just finished having sex while wearing the Mitt Romney masks. They didn't even close the window. They just finished having sex. I never saw them again. That apartment was replaced by a couple who like to piss on each other. Definitely the guy that uses his large screen TV to masturbate every night with his curtains wide open. His porn interests are pretty bland. Just your standard porn star getting pounded by a dude whose face you never see. I'd have to actively try not to see this. That's how easy it is to see. Well, it's 10 PM. Better not look out the window cause then we'll see neighbor man getting his wank on. An incredibly hot woman sunbathing topless on a rooftop in the middle of the day. But this roof wasn't taller than its adjacent buildings. Oh no, this was like a 10-story building surrounded on all 4 sides by massive high-rises. All told she was flashing them out to maybe 50 floors worth of office drones, many of whom I'm sure were pressed to the window glass. She probably reduced nationwide GDP for the day by at least a cool million. I live in Nick. In my first apartment, my guy bedroom window was right up against my neighbor's girl bedroom window. Our windows were 3 feet apart. Neither of us had blinds or curtains. We kinda just lived peacefully ignoring each other, changing, watching Netflix, listening to music. We were both single, and on more than one occasion, we both had guests over at the same time. We only finally met when we were both moving out on the same day. We got a drink together and laughed about all the shenanigans we had in front of each other. Never learned each other's names. Was the best neighbor I ever had. Edit, spelling, grammar. Went to college in a big city. Our freshman dorms were directly across the street from another university's freshman dorms. There was a hot girl who used to open her blinds then take off her clothes and do stuff naked all the time. She definitely liked the audience. She was hot girl. Another kinda chubby chick used to have a six in bed near her window all the time. She was sex girl. Halloween comes around and she's dressed like a milk wench. Brings a dude home. So now she's sex wench. A few weeks later, sex wench brought a dude home. And after they're going at it for a few minutes, she's consoling him as he cries sitting up on the bed. Don't know what went wrong. But now she's mean sex wench. Some dumbasses in our school wrote in giant font on our side of the street "show us your tits" and put it in their windows. Even naked girl started closing her blinds after that. In someone's window, a woman masturbating. I was waking by. Window was large. She was sitting there going to town on herself. I walked away quickly. In a car window, a guy getting head from a woman in the parking lot of a Toys R Us. Out in the open, a homeless man fingering a homeless woman on the stairs of a metro station. Lived in a rather small apartment building with a central courtyard and units all around. Facing into the courtyard were all the windows including one that looked directly into the shower from waist to ceiling. So on the top floor at any given time you could see into dozens of showers. Some people put up curtains. Some put up slotted blinders that don't obstruct much of anything when looking down from above. Some who moved and took a while to notice before putting anything up. Some just went full on wide open. Including the college age girls maybe 15 feet away. I had a corner unit. Pervy 20-year-old me saw so many titties that first year and renewed my lease just for 12 months more in Titty Town. My neighbors from across the street are the worst tbh. This girl hosts orgy parties that we can hear from across the street. One day we were coming home at around 10 PM. Though it was someone else parking in front of her house and came to the door completely naked. And we could see at least 3 of our neighbors were in there with her, along with some people we didn't know. The worst though was catching her kids, aged 3 and 4, mimicking sex on the patio of their house. And they did it like real pros. I suppose they saw their mom do it during her orgy parties. For your information, the neighbors constantly call CPS on her. We don't sit idle. When I was a teenager, a friend and I thought it would be hilarious to order pizza to the house across the street and watch the confusion unfold. The confusion was anticlimactic, as you can imagine, but the aftermath was crazy. We could see right into their living room and the dad husband went ducking crazy and started screaming and throwing it and then started actually punching holes in the wall and ripping apart said wall once the hole was started. We didn't do the pizza thing again. Nick, high-rise office in Midtown, had an apartment building directly across from us, maybe 50 feet away of similar height. Every morning at 9 AM on the dot, this drop-dead gorgeous woman would take a shower, which had a window in it, and the blinds were wide open like 90% of the time. She knew what she was doing. That conference room was booked out months in advance, and we had a standing rule that you couldn't have reoccurring appointments at 9 AM for it. I'm pretty sure we made up expensive projects solely to snag it at times. Nothing. I'm so salty about this too. I deliberately moved to the city to see wacky stuff like this. Downtown Seattle and not a bare ass in sight in the many hundreds of windows I can see. Lots of boring people. Come to 3rd and Pike. Plenty of naked homeless people. Puking homeless people. Fighting homeless people. Injecting homeless people. Not moving so the ambulance has been called homeless people. And Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientology guy handing out pamphlets.